Hey guys, I got a lot of stuff on this table. So every year we do a holiday season roundup with our favorite suggestions for what you can do to treat your friends or treat yourself with some really cool cosplay items. And we kind of pull this list off of what we've really enjoyed using for the year in our crafting. And so for 2020, I have pulled a whole bunch of stuff out of our craft room, and I'm going to share with you my favorite suggestions for what to add to your arsenal for the 2020 holiday season. So there's a huge range of things on here no matter what your budget is, and I think the most affordable what we have is a silicone mat. This is very well loved by me. I have had this for probably 4 years now. This is the same silicone mat I pull out in every single holiday roundup post. And yeah, it's stained, it's messed up, it's cut. I think I said last year that I needed to buy a new one, and then I proceeded to not do that. But this is wildly useful and also wildly cheap. What I love using this for is honestly anything that you want to protect your floors from, especially when you're using thermoplastic. So with thermoplastic, it's a plastic that becomes very sticky when you heat it up. And so if you're working on maybe a laminate surface or a less expensive table that's not necessarily made out of wood, if you heat your plastic up enough, it's gonna stick to your table, especially if you're working with a really sticky kind like Fibra or Wonderflex Pro. But a silicone mat is specifically a non-stick surface. This is technically for baking, but it works really great for crafting as well. Just pop this onto your surface, the floor, the table, and then do all of your warbler work right here. It's really great, it's really easy, and it's really cheap. I love this thing. Highly recommend. Also, the link for all of these items, I'm going to include them down in the description below so you can follow it directly there. Some of the Amazon links do have our affiliate information, which actually really helps us out if you're interested in buying them and found this video useful, but you can find all of that stuff down below this video. So kind of on the subject of inexpensive things to help around the craft room, especially having to do with Worbla, this guy has been something that I have personally had for a very long time. This is a heat-resistant glove. There's a matching second one somewhere, but what I like to use this for is anytime I'm working with thermoplastics and I really need to heat it up a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever had this trouble where if you heat up thermoplastic a ton, maybe you're molding it with your hands or you're doing something that requires a lot of heat and it burns your fingers. Very common occurrence, and that's what these are for. These are gloves. I think I got these from cosplaysupplies.com. Amazon might sell a version as well, but these are specifically meant to protect yourself from the heat, and also they resist certain types of thermoplastic. They do not resist the really, really sticky ones, so Fibra, Wonderflex Pro. Don't actually wear this when you're working with those, just be more careful. But with other Worbla types, they work really, really well and they'll protect your hands from getting burned. So love that. One of the things we've mentioned year after year is a Tailor's ham, which is a wonderful little rounded thing that's great for ironing out curves because it's got a slightly round shape, and so you can get into the seams or the curves a little bit easier than if you were just putting it on a flat surface. But this year, we got a Tailor's sleeve. It's essentially a ham, but it's in a slightly different shape. It's a lot more tubular, and this is specifically for if you have a sleeve and you need to iron it, rather than laying it flat on the table and then ironing a darn seam into the thing, you put this into the sleeve and then iron away. Very convenient, very inexpensive. I think this is like $15, something like that. But I don't know why it took us until 2020 to buy a Tailor sleeve, but now I own one, and now I'm suggesting that you do too. All right, this is an oldie but goldie. I tell you guys to buy this thing every single year. This is a French curve. What this is useful for is two things. Scone really likes to use this when drafting patterns. The curve is very helpful for if you are creating a sleeve or any kind of curve. You've got a couple different curves here, so like a very gentle one, a very sharp one, and essentially you can help use this to trace. Because it is actually marked here, You know, if you know that the inside of your arm scythe needs to be 6 inches, we can count out 6 inches on the curve rather than taking a tape measurer and getting it all screwed up and kinky when we're trying to kind of curve it around something. Just use this thing, it's great. I don't draft a lot, but what I do love is the fact that it's clear, and having a clear ruler with all of these little marks for our quarter and eighth and inch and being able to see right through that, it's very, very convenient. I actually really love curved rulers a lot. If you're just really looking to beef up your ruler collection, this guy is also great. This is from Olfa, I believe. But I love clear rulers so much. They're really convenient. This is an even bigger one. It's 24 inches, which I really like. So then you have a huge ruler. It's clear. You can see through it and very, very easily mark things off. This one actually has angles as well, which is surprisingly convenient. So if I need to make something a 45-degree angle, I can just whoop, I can see exactly where that's supposed to go here. This is a really nice ruler. I like this a lot. All right, and the final thing, kind of rounding out our more affordable holiday spending spree, is a very simple thread holder. I think this is technically an embroidery thread holder, but what this is for is, a lot of times there's a stick that comes up out of the middle of this. You put your embroidery thread here, it goes up through this hook and out, and that's all it does. And you might say, why do you have this? I have a thread holder in my machine. Why do I need this thing? If any of you have an embroidery machine and you struggle with the thread tangling and snapping, especially if you're using metallic, that's a lot of times because of the tension put on the thread. Embroidery thread is really delicate, and so any kind of tension, like if the thread, just from the simple act of being unwound from the spool, pulls a little too much, that can cause snapping. And so what we find is a lot of people have these tricks where you put the thread in a cup or you put it up high. We will just put it right here and up through the hook and into the machine. And this extra length right here and this extra little hook really, really, really helps us with our thread and causes a lot less tangling and a lot less snapping with metallics. This is $5. This is totally worth the investment if you work at all with metallic embroidery. So love this, highly recommend getting that. So some other tools that we have really enjoyed this year. This pair of scissors is freaking huge. This is by Famore, and as you guys can see, these are massively enormous shears. I say massively enormous because I don't work with huge shears a lot. I know there are way bigger ones, but for me, these are oversized and they're very heavy. They are just so nice stainless steel and just very, very solid scissors. If you guys have not checked out their booth at Dragon Con, by the way, I highly recommend stopping by. They make the coolest stuff. But these really caught our eye as something that we didn't have anything like this. We just had a lot of inexpensive scissors. We had some smaller gingers, and to be honest, we're kind of looking to replace our gingers due to some changes with the company over the years. And I am just a big fan of this brand now, and especially this size. So if you guys are looking for some new, very nice shears that honestly are not that expensive for how good these are, highly recommend checking these out. All right, I say this every single year. If you work with thermoplastic or with foam and you don't have a heat gun, go do yourself a favor and grab yourself a heat gun. This is our heat gun. This is by Wagner, and I like this one because it has a cool down button. You don't necessarily have to have that, but it does prolong the life of the heat gun. This one has 2 modes, which is basically it's hot or it's slightly less hot and then cool down. You can adjust the temperature a little bit. Aside from that, there's really nothing I recommend about a specific type of heat gun aside from do not buy the ones for crafting. You know, Michaels and AC Moore, they do sell the little blue heat gun that's very small and very cheap. You can buy it, but it's gonna break pretty soon. So if you want to invest in a heat gun, this bad boy was probably $45 for the nice cool down button. You can get them even cheaper if you don't need that. But this is a huge help, especially with any kind of foam work or armor work, if that's something you're looking to get into. Now, this is something that I did not think I would love this much. I had seen the Cos-Tools foam cutting stuff before, and I thought, well, I'm probably not going to need that. I don't do a ton of foam work, it's okay. And then I had the chance to use this channel rail, and guys, this is really, really cool. This is just such a smart thing. That's like what I'm most impressed with. So if you're like me, and you are extremely obsessed with things being perfectly clean and neat and straight, you know, you have to draw your line and then you have to drag your blade along the foam in order to hopefully cut that very straight line. Or you can just lay this bad boy down, take your blade cutter, which fits, oops, it's on the wrong way. Your cutter fits directly into that channel rail here, and we lock it in. So you then drag the blade and you will always, always, always get this perfectly straight line. You can also set this to a 45-degree bevel, but the straight line just absolutely kills me. It's so much faster than having to manually draw that line out and just be very, very, very careful with your X-Acto. It's just such a smart device. I'm just really impressed with it, and I love it a lot. So that's a new discovery for 2020 for me. If you're looking for something to kind of beef up your cosplay collection, something to give to somebody, I have to recommend that you guys check out my cool wig book that I made this year. This is The Art of Extreme Wig Styling. It is $15 for the digital version, or you can actually order a soft cover version as well if you live in the USA. This is 100 pages of full color, very word intensive instructions for all of my wig working techniques, because it's not just for advanced or intermediate people, it's for beginners as well. And it really starts you out with those beginning techniques so that you can kind of build on those skills and then learn how to get into the harder, really fun stuff too. There's also other books that you can add to your arsenal if you want to start a little collection. Jedi Manda just wrote a really cool intro to cosplay that you can purchase on Amazon now. Yaya also just published Yaya's World of Cosplay, which you can buy online now as well. These are all available and all really, really cool resources that I'm going to link down below for you guys. And the final thing that I really want to share is something related to the Cricut. In previous years, we've always recommended the Cricut Maker. I know you guys know and love that machine. It's really, really cool. But the new item that we have started using this year a whole bunch is the Cricut Heat Press. This is something that is really useful whenever we are using heat press vinyl, whenever we are creating applique using this material. The applique is bonded to our fabric by applying a large amount of heat. We can set the exact temperature that we need, and the press itself is really heavy and the bottom is very even surface. So you're going to get a lot of really consistent heat out of this. It's also a lot easier to press down onto the vinyl without pushing too hard. We don't use a ton of heat press vinyl, but to be honest, when we do, I'm really glad that we have this. This is something that we actually got for a present last holiday season, and it's been really useful the times that we have needed to pull it out. So if you're looking for just something else to add to your collection, this might be a good option. And speaking of irons, one thing that I also wanted to talk about is something that most people probably have already, but maybe you don't necessarily have one that you like. If you have an iron for your regular cosplay and you find that maybe it's kind of finicky, maybe it doesn't have really good steam, or maybe it just breaks really often, this is our iron of choice, which is a Rowenta. It's a little bit pricier than your average iron, but to be honest, I think it's really, really worth it. We got this after our old iron just wasn't cutting it anymore. It was spitting water everywhere, not heating up very well, and I love this thing. You get some really consistent heat out of it. It doesn't break easily at all. It's lasted us a really long time. We actually had one before this until I dropped it on the ground, but the replacement one that we got after that has been a beast and has been well worth the investment. It's just something that you use so often in cosplay, and having a nice, reliable iron that steams really well is just something that really makes our lives easier, and I definitely recommend it. So that is our 2020 roundup of all of our favorite tools and things that might make a good gift this holiday season. I hope you guys really enjoyed it and found some new stuff for you to craft with. If you have something that you love crafting with that I didn't include on this list, please comment with it below, because I like buying new stuff too, and I always want to add things to our arsenal. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next year.